that it's not on. But anyway, thanks for coming to our Planning Commission meeting tonight. We're going to call the meeting to order, and if you'd all please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First, we'll start with roll call.
Chair Wolf.
Here.
Vice Chair List.
Here.
Member Friend. Member Lowry.
Here.
Member Roby. Here.
All right, thank you. We'll move right on to the consent calendar. If anybody has anything they'd like to pull from the consent calendar before we consider it. Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Signify your approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. We'll move on. We'll move on to the minutes of the June 16 meeting. Any discussion or exceptions?
Mr. Chairman, accept. I think you might be looking at the wrong agenda.
Oh, it says
the
draft.
minutes on the.
Oh, had the wrong date?
Yeah.
Okay, July 7th.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All right. Do we hear a motion to accept the agenda, the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll move on to items of interest to the public, or the public comment section. This is a time for anyone here who'd like to address the Planning Commission and the planning staff on any issues or items that aren't on tonight's agenda. All right. Everybody's all excited about that. Seeing none, we'll move on. We move on to written communications, and we just got one.
Yes, that's related to item 6.3 on tonight's agenda, the Lincoln Street request tonight.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, so we'll just move expeditiously on to the public hearings. Our first hearing item tonight will be item 6.1, 994 Thompson Way, a site plan review. And I think we can dispense with reading all of this stuff. It's all in the record anyway, so we'll just move right on to staff report.
Yeah, I'll take care of that tonight for you. I think for the interests of time, since both projects are adjacent to one another, the description of the site is going to be the same for both. So I'm just going to give one physical description, location, information, zoning, and then we'll follow up with more details for the specific items on 6.1 and 6.2 on tonight's agenda.
Sounds fine.
Both requests are by Jim Piazza, who is in the audience this evening. He's the property owner of the two parcels, officially at 994 and 996 Thompson Way. And the request tonight is to construct a new single-family homes on these vacant lots. Both sites have identical high-density residential general plan land use designations, as well as multiple family residential zone classifications. The maximum density within the zone district is 12 dwelling units per acre. Under the multiple family zone, multiple family uses and structures are permitted, with single family residential uses permitted, provided the commission makes a finding that due to site circumstances such as limited parcel area, irregular parcel size, topography, that the development of multifamily dwellings is not practicable. Both sites are located within the Cedar Ravine Road Residential Historic District. They both are surrounded by residential structures that exist, including, and also a school, a preschool, and are in close proximity to professional offices along Cedar Ravine, as well as the Placerville Union School District offices and Sierra Elementary School. Both parcels were created under a parcel map that was recorded in 2013. Item 6.1, the 994 Thompson Way. That parcel has an average slope of 24% and a net parcel area, when you subtract recorded easements that are recorded against the parcel, of approximately 5,700 square feet. Item 6.2, that site again is 996 Thompson Way, has an average slope of 25.5% and a net parcel area after subtracting recorded easements of approximately 6,300 square feet. Curb, gutter, sidewalk, and driveway curb cuts are in place for both lots, both vacant lots along Thompson Way, and those are evidenced in figures 1 and 2 of staff's report this evening. These requests are before the Commission pursuant to sections 10.4.10 of City Code, the Historical Buildings in the City section, and 10.4.9, the Site Plan Review section, as it relates to new buildings in a historic district. Under these regulations, all new buildings within historic districts shall have their exterior architecture that is visible from the street be approved by the Planning Commission. These regulations, however, do not require that new construction duplicate historic architecture, only that it requires that new construction be compatible with historical architecture within a historic district. The general plan community design element contains 2 goals and 2 policies that staff believes are applicable to the request. These are goals C and goal I, which describe the protection and promotion of architectural visual quality of the city's residential areas. Policy 2 of goal C and policy 1 of goal I stipulate that new construction be architecturally compatible with and be a positive addition to the nature and character of the surrounding neighborhood. The city's development guide was also adopted by City Council, and this document was done to implement the community design element, and it sets forth guidelines for the construction of new residential structures relative to building scale, building mass, building proportion, exterior finishes, colors, and fire retardant roof coverings. Now, as for specifically for the 994 Thompson Way site, staff finds that the applicant's cross gable design with its 7 and 12 roof pitch, Class A fire retardant asphalt shingles, it includes a roof dormer, roof corbels, lap siding, and double hung windows. It's got 2-story scaling and massing, which are characteristic of and compatible with existing residential and other uses along Thompson Way, as well as Cedar Ravine Road, located within the historic district. Now, the applicant did not provide a color scheme for these new residences. However, the guidelines mention that earth tone colors are the most compatible with the existing visual character of Placerville. Perhaps the applicant can shed some light as to the types of colors that he's envisioning painting these structures. The parcel area, as I mentioned, is approximately 5,700 square feet, making it difficult and insufficient for the establishment or building of 2 dwelling units under the zoning code. The maximum allowed units for this parcel with its parcel area, using the 12 dwelling units per acre density, calculates to 1.56 dwelling units. Doesn't quite get the 2 needed in order to necessitate and require a duplex or 2 units on the property. A finding from staff's perspective of insufficient parcel area can therefore be made by the Commission tonight. The request is also exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act in that it is consistent with the infill development criteria for exemption per section 15332 of the CEQA guidelines. Public notice was provided in accordance with city policy, and at this juncture, no public comments has of yet been received for this item or for item 6.2. In summary, staff believes this is a very good infill development residential project that's consistent and compatible with the design and materials, along with structures and uses within the Cedar Ravine Road Residential Historic District, as well as city design criteria and city land use and zoning classifications. Staff recommends the Commission adopt the findings in Attachment B in support of the request, and then conditionally approve Site Plan Review 2015-06, subject to the conditions of approval provided as Attachment C. Once again, that concludes my report. Mr. Piazza is in the audience this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Before we hear from the applicant, does the commission have any questions of staff at this point? No? Okay. You're up, sir. We'll keep the public hearing going.
Questions on, the site plan or the architectural aspect, the streetscape of the property. As far as color scheme, we're going to go with earth tone schemes naturally. It's, kind of tans and browns, and we'll accent it with appropriate trim colors. I haven't really, thought about paint at this point, but I understand kind of, what you guys want and everything. The project, I think the architectural design of the project meets pretty much, the historical aspect of a lot of the homes and a lot of the characteristics in the area. And I think the single-family homes would be a real good fit to Thompson Way and enhance the area. I pretty much, Andrew pretty much summed it up with everything I was going to say, so I don't have any other thing to say unless you guys have some questions that you need me to answer.
I think the commission has some questions.
Okay.
Thank you. On page A2 of the plans, the elevation shows stucco covering the foundation under the front porch. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe it is, or brushed concrete, because the foundation is going to be elevated out of the ground, so we'll do something to make it look better.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm indicating that's going to be concrete underneath there.
Right,
You're gonna put a
right. The
finish-
houses are, the first floor is a concrete slab.
Okay.
So it'll be should be a smaller type of stem wall there.
And on your elevations, I did not see where you plan on placing the street, the address location. Do you know where you have the plan?
We probably didn't quite get that far yet. I'm sure it'll be on the face of the garage under a lighted, light there on one of the garage sides.
And I'm just gonna say this now so we don't have to go through this again. This is true on both plans? The questions I've
Yes,
asked.
yes.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Okay, I was just curious about how, just from a kind of a process standpoint, a lot of times when you get two applications like this, similar kind of projects, they'll end up being the same size, and they're slightly different. It's just a curiosity.
The reason that is I actually have a lady that I built a house for in the past design one of the homes herself, and then the other one I'll put for sale, as a speculation home. So I tried to increase my square footage, as much as I possibly could on the house that I'm retaining for resale value. She's a single lady and didn't want a lot of square footage to take care of. And but the homes are similar in design because the way the land is, we thought that it would be better to drop it 4 feet for the garage to where you're only going up 4 feet to the first level, and then the only thing that'll be 2-story would be over the garage for 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And I think people, when they buy a house like that, it's a house that you can age into better as far as the master bedroom, the living room, all the laundry rooms and everything being on the first floor. And there's a small amount of steps to climb to get to the first floor. The lot is so steep and so it's just, it's a hard lot to build on. It's really challenging. And we're doing the best we could in designing what we did, so.
All right, thank you. And I do appreciate the fact that you didn't just flip it over and mirror it. And
No,
exactly the
that
same.
wasn't. No,
That's good.
we've done a lot of construction in the city of Placerville and El Dorado County. I've lived here most of my life, and we try to put a really good quality project out there. And we don't want a mirrored finish. We're kind of stuck with a little bit of the same things because of the slope and the way the land lent itself to our construction. Other than that, we tried to, the front you know, facades, everything. We tried to change them up, make them look different, still, you know, but still be able to have a similar footprint.
All right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing
Okay.
and bring it back to the commission for comments. Anybody want to go first?
Point of order. Just for clarification, did you invite anyone else who wanted to speak?
Oh.
Yeah.
My bad. We'll reopen the public hearing in case there's any more public that wants to be heard. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that correction. So we'll once again close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion and possible action.
I have a related question for staff. We looked at the acres of the square feet acres of the parcel area, and then allowing a maximum of some, 1.56, 1.73 dwelling units. For my edification, how close do we have to get to 2.0 to be able to put to go to the next stage?
Commissioner Roby, is your microphone on? I think
No.
we're getting
Yes, it is.
the,
Okay. Okay. Is this any better?
use your well-modulated radio voice if you have one.
Well modulated. Okay. Question was, with the square footage of the parcel coming out to allowing 1.56 dwelling units, for my edification, in the event that we are trying to get to that 2.0, how close do we get to the 2.0 when we say yes, that's a green light? Not for this, obviously, specific instance, but for future reference.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it would have to be hundredths of an acre, a few
Okay.
hundredths, yeah. We're talking tenths here. I know we're kind of splitting acreage here, but
Yeah, as I
does
mentioned,
that help?
obviously that's not an issue here, but
Right.
for future reference, when we get to that 1.99 and we're looking at each other thinking, do we round that up? Do we
I think in a 1 or a 0.99, or 1.99, we would probably round that one up, yeah.
Okay,
If there were findings to do that,
thank you.
yeah.
Okay, and I think just for simplicity, as we're considering this, we probably have to, from a practical standpoint, vote separately on each item, but it seems
Correct.
reasonable
I
to
held back
discuss
on
both of them.
my discussion about 996 until,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we want to keep them separated?
Please.
All right, thank you.
So my only comment, Mr. Chairman, is that I concur with staff's assessment that this is a quality infill project and appropriate. The only question I would ask of the commission, if there's anything about the project they don't feel has been represented either by staff or by applicant, if they'd want to know, that this would be the time to ascertain that. And should Commissioner consider a motion, perhaps you'd want to consider that paint colors should be submitted to staff for administrative review and approval. Just some suggestions.
I agree with that on your comments about the color board. We sort of always are here. I'm not grinding on the applicant, but it's been my understanding that the color boards are required. And so when they're not submitted, you have to ask why. I mean, and chances it looks like a quality project. They just didn't get to it. But I think it does make sense to still have it happen.
We had this happen with a project from our last meeting as well, and you take the applicant's representation at face value, but at the same time, once it's there, and it really would be nice to see those. But I would be comfortable with allowing staff to review and sign off on those.
Anyone prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve project SPR 2015-06 as stated in attachment B and C, pages 17, 18, 19, under item 6.1, with the addition of a color board being presented to staff.
I'll second that motion, and then for clarification, that would be condition number 10.
Yes.
Any further discussion on the motion? All right, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair List.
Aye.
Member Friend.
Aye.
Member Roby.
Aye.
Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Member Lowry.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to the next item, which is the next project by the same applicant for, I lost it, where'd it go?
996 Thompson Way.
Item 99, or for address, or the item
Item 6.2.
6.2. And I don't think we need to go through all the boilerplate again. Anything the applicant, or wait a minute, any other questions of staff first? Okay, we'll open the public hearing, and if the public wants to be heard, the applicant, all right, he seems reluctant. We'll close the public hearing unless there's someone else. Nope, no thank you. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for further discussion and action.
Point of order, forgive me, I was late, but were these two items brought singularly? Because they're agendized separately, and do we not have to address them similarly, even though it is going through the motion of the board?
Yeah, it's my understanding we have to
Have
keep
a
them
staff-
separated.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I understood that we weren't going to have a staff presentation, and we weren't going to have public hearing, and maybe I was confused.
Well, I
I'm
just
sorry.
did the public hearing part, and
right.
maybe just for clarification, you want to clarify your clarification about
Sure.
discussing them both together, but we'll take separate action.
Yeah, these
I may
are-
have missed this, I
Yeah,
apologize.
these projects are on separate parcels.
I figured that.
And the entitlements requested are specific to the parcel in question.
Correct.
So it behooves this body to review them separately. What I did prior to your arrival is I provided them an overview of the general area, the zoning, what have you,
Okay.
which they share in common.
Okay,
I'd be happy to explain how this project, this particular one, meets, in staff's opinion, the criteria, the code sections related to design in the historic district, if you wish. I'd be happy
it's
to do
my, it's my deficiency. I, for some reason, thought we were simply going to move to commissioner action on this and not have any staff. I'm sorry, I withdraw my comment.
So if there's some staff report here, additional information, I think we should do it.
The 996 Thompson Way site, staff finds that the cross gable design, the 7 and 12 pitch, the fire retardant Class A shingle to be employed, the front entry porch, stairway landing, lap siding, double hung windows, its two-story scale and massing. These are all characteristic of and compatible with the residential and other structures along Thompson Way in Cedar Ravine that are located within the historic district. The parcel area is approximately 6,300 square feet, making it insufficient for 2 dwelling units under the zoning code. The maximum allowed units for this parcel with the area, taking into consideration the 12 dwelling units per acre maximum, is 1.74 dwelling units. And once again, it doesn't quite meet the 2 dwelling unit test under the density requirements or maximum. Therefore, staff believes the Planning Commission can make a finding of insufficient parcel area for this request. The request is also exempt from environmental review under CEQA guidelines, section 15332, in that it is consistent with the infill development criteria of that section. Public notice was provided. However, no public comments have yet to be received for this item. This project is a good infill project. Once again, it's consistent, compatible with the design, materials, structures, and uses within the historic district, as well as city design criteria and the land use and zoning classifications. Staff recommends the commission adopt the findings in attachment B of staff's report, which support the request, and then conditionally approve the request, subject to the conditions of approval provided as attachment C. Taking note regarding the previous item and the comment related to the color board.
Thank you. We'll just bring it back to the commission here for discussion and action.
I actually have a question for the applicant. Is that possible?
It's a small group tonight. We have another question for the applicant.
Sure.
So, thank you for being here tonight to present your project.
You're welcome.
Because you're doing two projects essentially at the same time in the same area right next to each other, essentially, as opposed to considering each project singularly, the architecture for the two very, very similar. And I want to ask, and I will actually ask the commission to give some consideration to this, because this is a historic district, and it's a historic district review. How beholden, and of course that always equates to money, and I appreciate that, but how beholden are you to the architectural representation of one or the other? Or, and let me rephrase the question, how feasible or possible would it be for you to create something that's strikingly different between the two, as opposed to making it look like two almost identical homes, mirror image, nearly mirror images, went into this district? And how could we get some architectural differentiation between the two? And that's a big deal, I realize, but
Yeah. Well, we tried by doing the dormer, and the porch is different, and one has a covered front porch, the other one is smaller, it doesn't. We did the best we could with the footprint. If you have suggestions, I mean, I'm open to suggestions. We tried to, stay with lap siding. The windows are a little different. Some are single-hung, some are perimeter gridded. The garage door can the lights in the garage doors can be changed. If there's some belly band trim or something, or, that you would like to add to it.
Great.
I mean, I don't really know, the way the lot was and the way we were compacting the dirt and getting the slab with the garage lower, it kind of lent itself to the same,
Sure.
type situation with the slope and everything. So,
So the first thing I want to say is I appreciate the infill project, and thank you very much for bringing that, and your willingness to perhaps consider something. How about a big round turret on one of them? Just kidding. Just
with
that was
what
levity.
caliber machine gun?
I am not qualified necessarily to provide too much detail along the suggestions that you've been kind of to offer. I might defer to Commissioner Chair Wolf if he has some suggestions, but I think the commission kind of gets the sense for where I'm going. Historically, in a historic district, you would have custom homes that were clearly differentiated from each other in style and architectural representation. And there certainly is some attempt here, but at the same time, they also look extremely similar. So that's the only thing I'm going to raise and see where the commission goes. I do appreciate your willingness to consider that, and
Sure.
I do understand the difficulties with the lot limitations and so on and so forth. So we'll see where it goes.
As far as roof lines go, I don't know what I can really do with the roof lines. As far as like above the garages, the way the windows are and everything, we could possibly do maybe a Shakerton, cedar siding look, naturally with a non-flammable material. It'd have to be out of a cement concrete siding, but they have different options on, I don't know if you've seen that staggered edged Shakerton look that, it really looks nice, and it would break up the front a little bit differently, and I'm open to doing something like that. I just didn't quite get that far with the time frames and everything we had going on, as far as more detail on those plans and the color boards. So if you have some suggestions, like I said, I'm open to suggestions, since it is just the front facade, so it's not like I have to revamp the whole house,
Right,
the
correct.
whole exterior.
And that's going to be the biggest visual impact, right, in the neighborhood.
Right,
It's gonna be the front
right.
facade, so. Okay, that's the only question that I had.
Okay, sure.
And thank you for that deference to the chair, but I'm going to duck the question because we're not looking at we're also not looking at floor plans, nor would we normally be, as you know, here. So we are just talking about surface treatment essentially and
Yes.
modulating the massing a little bit. But I do understand, I'm sort of sympathetic with where he was at in terms of the massing of these buildings in order to make it work on the site and not get too tall to anything.
I'm going to withhold my comment until the public hearing's closed and it comes back to commission for action.
All right, anything, well, all right, so we're back to the commission then.
May I respond a little bit to that? Sure. As I'm looking at it, I see a couple things that he did differently, and it wasn't a mirror image. It's not an exact mirror image. And one has a covered porch, the other one doesn't. You have a different style of venting. One has a dormer window and the other one doesn't. So there are some differences that you would pick up as you drive by that are not showing on a flat piece of paper.
Well, I appreciate that, Commissioner, and that really is the question that I would simply throw out to the commission to consider, particularly since this is a historic district review consideration. Is the differentiation significant enough to avoid the appearance of a near but not identical carbon copy? For sure, there are some slight differences, as you pointed out, and as the applicant pointed out. And I'm just wondering that, again, given the threshold of a historic review, if that's sufficient. And I'm simply throwing that out to the other commissioners for their level of comfort, and I'm not advocating that the project is substandard or not worthy of approval in the absence of that. But this is the only opportunity that we have to do this. Again, it is a historic review. That's really the main emphasis on this component. Again, appreciating the infill aspect of it and just wanting to make sure that everyone looks at this with that eye at this time. And if the commission's comfortable, then that's fine.
And the other item with this is if you take the house that would be to the immediate right of this, it is based on a similar principle of the garage down lower and the house set up. So you're going to have three houses up the hill that layout similar, look different. And the change could come in color too. He could change his colors and make a difference.
Staff kind of hesitates to chime in here, but the garage doors might be another, the transom lights, perhaps some modification. He's got kind of the angular, kind of the crescent-looking transom lights on the garage panels. Perhaps more square on one might further differentiate. Again, I hesitate throwing some suggestions unless asked, but that might be something to consider as well.
So something along the lines of any cosmetic treatments, and there are exterior treatments. I'm not concerned with the floor plan at all. The appearance, the integrity of a historic district, I think, is driven by the architecture. When you're in a historic district, no one knows what the floor plans of the facilities are. It's all about the architecture. It's all about the outward appearance.
And variety is a big.
And variety, I think, is a significant component of that. And so my inclination would be that we ask the applicant between the two, and I don't know how you would do this if you can, because we've already approved one item, but there is some unique aspect to this, but one impacts the other. We're acting on this one, that between the two, to the greatest extent possible, that the applicant provide as much differentiation in terms of treatments, colors, architectural renderings, and whatnot, as to diminish to the greatest extent possible the similarity between the two structures. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting to. Is similar to the project we approved at the upper end of Broadway, where we simply said that this is just too much of a box-like structure and we want it broken up and altered. And so that's kind of where I am.
And it seems like, if I can chime in, on this one, to get that variety that we're all kind of maybe struggling with a little bit. I think if you take particular attention to differentiating the colors back and forth, maybe change the garage door. That's an easy thing that I just didn't spend a lot of your money. I mean, it's going to have lights anyway, so you can, you know, so I think if you use that, well, the thing is we don't choose, you know, but if you, perhaps we make it an easy solution is to make it a condition. Yeah. Yeah. The ease of drawing. Yeah, and plunk. There it is. But I think it's a pretty easy solution to get to meet the commission's. Right. So if
I'd
you
like-
look at the colors, look at the configuration of the garage door and the windows in the garage door, that pattern, I think we'll get some of the variety that we're looking for. I think this, anyway, I think it's a fairly easy solution without burning up your checkbook too much. Did you have something, sir?
Yeah, I did. So let's keep in mind that these two parcels do have another distinction. There's one is a custom home, and the other one is a spec house. I'm not comfortable asking the applicant to make any changes to the custom home that are not fully embraced by the person for whom the house is being built. If we need to, if there's seen some need to tinker with the spec house, I just I don't want to complicate the relationship that the applicant has with the customer with the custom home.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's an excellent observation. The condition that I would float for consideration would be the applicant would be required as condition 10 in this case to modify the exterior treatments and architectural considerations / representations to distinguish the project from 994 Thompson Way to the greatest extent possible. So that way 994 can exist as it is, which is the custom home, if I understand correctly.
I'm not sure.
And,
Yeah.
and 996 is the pre-sold. Is that the smallest parcel? Yeah, why don't you come up to the microphone if the chairman will indulge?
Address 996, is that the westerly parcel?
996 is the easterly parcel adjacent to the Edith Court.
Yes, then that is
994
the house
lower
that
slope.
she's purchasing, yes.
So the one we're considering right now is the one that she's purchasing.
Right.
Okay.
The one with the dormer that's why I put a dormer on mine, because, you know, she didn't want a dormer. I wanted a dormer. And it's hard, the map's upside down, kind of.
I think it might be the other way around. If you look at the elevations, the garage door opening and the driveways, when you look at, once again, we're looking at two different plan view and street view on your elevation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe thank you. Yeah. I believe the 994 is, based on the drawings on the wall, is the one on the far left.
Yes, the one with the dormer.
996 is the one in the middle, and then, of course, the site plan. So
Yes. The one with the dormer is
One with
the
the
house
dormer.
that's going to be for sale, and that is,
okay.
yeah, that is the lower parcel, which would be, I guess, the westerly parcel.
So that's the one we just considered and already took action on. So, so first of all, it depends on how important the commission feels it is that we have some sense of distinction in the historic district. And if there's none, then that's fine. That's the commission's purview. In response to the observation Commissioner Lowry raised, I think that's absolutely appropriate, and I would concur with that. The way to address that then would be, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, would be to approve the current item, 6.2 that we are on. And then I believe we can request to rehear a previously heard item, and which at that time a condition for differentiation architecturally from 996, which is what we're hearing now, could be made. And it just depends if the commission feels that the historic district component warrants that. And I'm in the camp that it does. And again, what I would ask is that with the item we previously approved, that we add condition 11, which would be that the applicant would modify the exterior treatments and/or architectural considerations and representations to distinguish the project from 996 Tonson Way to the greatest extent possible, thereby at least making some preservation of the historic district component, not interfering with the custom home that's being built, and still achieving the objective. That's where I would prefer to go with it if that's possible. But I'm only one commissioner.
Other thoughts?
Question, to what extent can and is landscaping used to differentiate these two properties? And I'm just going to speak into the microphone so everybody can hear that and answer that as appropriate. Is that a component that would come into play?
I'll take a stab at that. I mean, and then staff will probably chime in. You know, we're taking action on what we see. We don't, and landscape plans weren't a required component of this. So we can only, we can evaluate what we can evaluate because it's what's in front of us.
I was just thinking that maybe that would be a shirt tail component to the color board, which we're also not seeing and possibly requesting.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, the reason the grading plan and landscaping is not before you is that you're not charged to review that type of scrutiny for a single family residential use. It is required for commercial projects. You will receive in your future, you will receive projects that have landscape plans, etc. So yes, the applicant would be fully free to landscape as they see fit. But I see your point. Your point is well taken that if you could instill upon the applicant here this evening a suggestion, not codified in any motion or action taken, but just a suggestive comments to him that to help further differentiate the site, perhaps some variable landscaping between the two may reach the purpose that you're. I think what I'm gathering from your question. Does that help you? I think that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand the difference between the residential and the commercial. I was just thinking that might be out there and an option that, like you said, we wouldn't codify here, but could be available to the applicant. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, given the unique nature of the two side-by-side parcels and the proposed projects, and in the historic district, I'm going to make a motion to move this item to table.
Great. And a tabled item requires a vote.
And it requires a second and a vote.
A second and a vote. So do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Oh,
Aye.
wait, we should have some discussion. We should have some discussion.
We could?
On it. And I think I see this as an excellent strategy to be real clear, to separate the problem that the applicant would have. Although I'm personally a little uncomfortable with, we don't really mandate the use of these things as part of this particular kind of historic review. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but I understand the practicalities of it, and so I think it would be wise to table this motion. We'll reconsider the other one and then come back to this one. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll return to the.
Opposed? There might be an
Are
opposed.
there any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, I was just trying to steamroll.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider item 6.1.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Signify your approval by saying aye
Aye.
or nay.
Aye.
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 So, Mr. Chairman, again, given the unique nature of having the two side-by-side parcels of similar architectural representations in the historic district, what I would like to do is I would like to add condition 11 to item 6.1, which would read that the applicant shall be required to modify the exterior treatments and/or architectural considerations / representations to distinguish the project from 996 Thompson Way to the greatest extent possible, subject to the approval of administrative review of staff.
Okay, that was a motion, right?
That was a motion,
Yeah.
sir.
Anyone?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I just have one comment, and I realize that on 996, that is a custom home that someone's going to buy. But whatever we do will then run with the land. So while we might be considering the individual that's going to purchase the property at this point in time, that's also for in perpetuity. And so our action tonight is also significant for subsequent owners of the property. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I'm taking somewhat unusual measures to consider it, because I do think it's kind of important.
We have a motion and a second. More discussion?
Not me.
My only thought on this is that, if we have he has two parcels, and if a prospective buyer comes up for that second parcel and sees that the house next door looks exactly like the one next door, that's going to be a turnoff to some people that are looking for that uniqueness of moving to the foothills, moving to a historical district. I think he's a smart enough builder to realize he's got to make some changes without being forced to, so that he can sell it separately, even though, the floor plans may be very similar, but the exteriors are going to be what sell the property. And so that's why I guess what I'm saying is I'm hoping that he's listening to what we say in terms of the future sale of that property.
Except that what the applicant has brought to us is, here's what I'm proposing to build. So I'm presuming that test has already been passed, that the applicant he was given architectural renderings from whoever's doing the design for him, and he looked at them and said, okay, yeah, that's pretty good, and we made some changes here to give some distinctions. They don't look identical. But I'm not sure that if we don't act on it, there would be no reason for the applicant, this is not a negative against the applicant, but there'd be no reason for the applicant to go above and beyond. And our charge, at least as I see it, and the reason this is before us, has to do with a historic review. And I think that's an overlay that has a little bit, as I said previously, a little bit different threshold of consideration for us. And so that's why I'm pushing for this. And I think we're leaving it fairly open. Staff is going to have the ultimate review. We're not compelling substantial architectural redesign. What's that? I'm sorry. So, again, that's really, I think, what my motivation is. And respectfully, I do understand what you're saying. I don't think that'll be a factor in this case.
Comments from staff?
Yeah,
We've said
staff
a
has,
lot.
if that discussion is done, I don't know if it is, but I've got questions about the motion. The motion, as I understand it from this seat, was to add condition 11. But no mention in your motion as to a resolution of the outcome of the project to approve or not approve the project. So I think you need to rephrase your motion
sorry.
to include approval of the project with the addition of.
Thank you for pointing out the deficiency of my motion. So I would move to approve item 201506 site plan review, 994 Thompson Way, incorporating the staff report as part of the public record and the conditions as stated therein. I believe in attachment B, items 1 through 10 as previously approved, adding the second condition, additional condition 11, that the applicant shall be required to modify the exterior treatments and, sorry? It's C, not B. Oh, it's attachment C, I got the wrong attachment. The attachment with all the conditions, sounds like it's C. And it would be item 11, modify the exterior treatments and architectural considerations slash representations to distinguish the project from 996 Thompson Way to the greatest extent possible, subject to staff's administrative review and approval.
So that requires a second.
Yeah, did we have, if we had a motion before, then whoever seconded the motion would have to accept the friendly amendment. I think, believe that would be Commissioner Lowry.
That's me. I accept the friendly amendment.
Any additional discussion before we vote on this? All right, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Member List.
Aye.
Member Lowry.
Aye.
Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Member Friend.
Aye.
And who haven't I picked?
Commissioner.
Member Roby, sorry. Aye.
All right, thank you. The motion as amended passes.
I don't know if that's appealable to the city council or not.
I think it all is.
All actions are appealable.
All right.
Yeah.
Make a motion to move from table item 6.2, 996 Thompson Way.
Second.
Any discussion? Signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, so we'll reconsider the house next door.
I'd make a motion to approve site plan review 2015-07 996 Thompson Way, incorporating the staff report as part of the public record and accepting the conditions 1 through 9 on attachment B.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion? Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Member Friend.
Aye.
Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Vice Chair List.
Aye.
Member Lowry.
Aye.
Member Roby.
Aye.
All right.
And just for
thank-
clarification then, on this one, you did not add condition 10 regarding a color board being submitted to staff.
Thought that was part required. Technically, that is correct. We did not do that. That was required from the previous project. I believe we were going to ask for color board. We would presume the applicant was going to do that anyway, and staff would probably ask for it. But thank you, Pierre. That's right. We did not do that. So you can leave it unpainted, frankly, and it would meet conditions as set forth tonight.
Yeah. But they have to be 12 feet square. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. All right, we'll move on to item 6.3, 939 Lincoln Street, site plan review. This is a request, site plan review to replace the existing kitchen window along the north elevation of the existing residence from the existing slider style to a bay window. As stated, the new bay window would have divided lights of 3/1. In addition, the request includes the construction of a bathroom addition along the east elevation, adding a new roof gable and double hung window. The project also includes new siding and window trim for new additions, which would match those of the existing house. So first we'll move on to staff report, although I just gave part of it.
You did, thank you. The site, to give you an idea of the characteristics of the site itself, it's 1/1500ths of an acre. It's located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Lincoln and Coleman Streets. Improvements on the site include a 4-room, single-story, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family residence. The home has a cross-gabled roof design, has wood front stairs, covered entry porch, porch railing with pickets, double-hung 1/1 windows along the front elevation and several of the side elevation, as well as some slider windows along the side and rear elevation. There is a bay with windows that exist along the front elevation containing 1/1 double-hung windows, flanked by 2 other 1/1 double-hung windows. The home is clad with wood lap siding, and the county assessor estimates the year of built, because we don't have records that go back that far, but the estimated date is 1881. From staff's perspective, the home's existing character-defining features are its cross-gable design, the front stairs and covered porch, the front elevation bay and bay window, the lap siding, and the front elevation 1/1 double-hung windows. A detached wood-framed and wood-clad garage is located near the northwest corner of the site, once again, the corner of Lincoln and Coleman. The site has a high-density residential land use designation as well as a multifamily zoning classification. And this site is located entirely within the Bedford Avenue Clay Street Residential Historic District. The home is not listed on the city's historic inventory, the state register, or the National Register of Historic Places. And the site is surrounded by existing residential structures and uses. As the project summary announcement on the agenda alludes, the request is to alter the exterior of the building, and these exterior alterations that would be visible from the street. And when such a project exists within a historic district, then the elevations must come before you for your review and approval before a building permit's issued. Now, similar to the last project, there are one goal and a couple of policies that are applicable here within the community design element. And these policies and goals describe the protection and enhancement of architectural and neighborhood integrity of residential areas by requiring that new construction be architecturally compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. The request is also subject to a code section, which is 10410 of City Code. And this is the section called Historic Buildings in the City. Now, under an alteration type request, such as this one, then the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings are the design criteria that's employed here for your review, as well as the City Development Guide, which have characteristics within it that the Commission should be looking at tonight as well, and I've covered in my staff report. The Secretary of Interior Standards, or what I will now call the standards, call for the retention of existing uses as well as distinctive architectural features and materials. They don't allow the creation of false or historical development to occur. They stress repairing historic features over replacing them. And new additions or alterations must not destroy historic fabric and materials and must be differentiated from the old. Finally, new additions and new construction are to be undertaken so that if they are removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. Staff's analysis, we conclude that the proposed additions along with the new windows and siding would match the window and lap siding materials on the existing home, thus providing continuity amongst the proposal, as well as consistent with materials used in the historic district. The proposed composition roof shingles are Class A rated, which Mr. Vindler will be having employed shortly to cover the home. If you've been up to visit, you'll notice that some of the roof has been removed. The proposed rear bay window and bay end window are differentiated from the front bay window due to its angularity to the home itself, and that's characteristic and shown on Mr. Vindler's building elevations, which were provided to you. Staff also believes that these additions, if removed in the future and rehabilitated back to its original condition, these improvements are so slight in terms of the overall area, which is only approximately 30 square feet, that the home could be rehabilitated back to its original condition if someone were to want to do that. The request, therefore, is consistent with the city's goals, policies, code requirements, and design guidelines that I've outlined in the staff report. The project is also exempt from environmental review under the CEQA guidelines, section 15332, as an infill development project. And public notice was provided The public comment was received, which I provided to you this evening prior to the meeting, and provided a copy of it to the applicant from Roy Carter. Staff therefore recommends the commission adopt the findings in attachment B and conditionally approve the request with the conditions of approval as part of the staff report, attachment C. Mr. Vindler is in the audience this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff before the applicant? Okay. State your name and,
Jim Vindler, James
Thank you.
Vindler, and my wife are Linda here.
all right, thank you.
If anybody has any questions,
So are you going to restore the Volkswagen too?
unfortunately, okay, those pictures I wanted to show you because if you've driven by recently, those were the pictures when we purchased the house at the end of October, this past October, okay?
I was
So-
hoping it was in the shop.
Yeah. Go with your El Camino. But anyway, no, we, as you can see, we've done substantial work. The previous owners we bought it from, the family has owned it for the last 110 years. And our kind of joke is that they didn't do any repairs for the last 109 years, okay? So you can see what's going on is just we're repairing a lot of deferred maintenance, getting ready to have a new roof put on, which was very, very challenging even in a drought winter to keep it dry inside and get rid of the squirrels in the attic and the skunks under the house and all that kind of thing. So anyway, our plan is to go ahead. Our contractor assured us he can get basically identical wood lap siding. We're using the double hung windows. We're keeping the color of the house the same as it is currently. And I don't know if you have any other questions.
Staff can quickly chime into Mr. Vindler's comment about the permit history. We have only one permit of record for this particular location, and it was for a gas line, a LPG line installed, I think it was 20 years ago. So,
Yeah.
so we can attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah, our contractor and other people have told us that the house was built in 5 sections, basically from 1881 to 1930 or 1940, and you can see by the differences in the architecture as you look around. So, yeah. I even have a copy of the original land grant the previous owner had, signed and sealed by Ulysses S. Grant, president. Okay, sold to Eva Coleman. So, anyway.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, anyone else wishing to address this project? Okay.
Staff has one more clarification in my opening remarks. I incorrectly stated the CEQA exemption. It's section 15301, which has to do with existing structures, and these are minor modifications to an existing structure. And so therefore, staff still concurs that this project is exempt from CEQA and as analyzed in the staff report.
All right, thank you. So we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission.
I just want to make the observation to my fellow commissioners and actually to the applicant of the previous project who's still with us today, that, again, this is a historic district review, and you see how much emphasis and effort needs to be applied to this. And Mr. Carter's letter, he doesn't understand why, and it's reasonable for the public not to understand why so much fuss to simply replace a window or simply replace lap siding, but we hold some high regard for what we consider to be our historic districts, and it's easy. I guess it's easier to apply the rationale to an existing structure that has age, and it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to apply it to structures that are going to be built. But I think they're related, if that makes any sense. I think the project is fine. I'm more than happy to support it. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Also, my observation is that, it's interesting. having been chairman of the now defunct Placerville Historic Advisory Committee for a couple of years, perhaps we ended the committee. Yeah, perhaps we ended the committee too soon because both of these projects would have come to the committee that we stopped having meetings because there were no applications, amongst other things. But I agree with Commissioner Friend. It is a situation where we've lost a lot of our history, and taken out of context, it seems crazy to make people spend the time, the money, the effort to spend this time and money and the staff to work on, address seemingly small kinds of things. But, you lose big things, one cut at a time. And so it's really good that we appreciate the applicant going through this process. We know it probably involves some high blood pressure moments, as these sorts of things do. But this is also a situation where history can be made a little bit better by improving this project rather than getting into arm wrestling contests over should this door move 2 feet and can this building stick out 4 feet. This is a net gain for the community and for the city in general, as well as a little tiny win for historic preservation. Even though it's sort of one window, one bathroom at a time. So, but I think it's a nice little project, and we should talk offline about the Volkswagen. Any other discussion? Possible action?
I move that we approve projects located at 936 Lincoln Street, Placerville, SPR 2015-08. Attachment C 1 through 9.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
For clarity, did Vice Chair List's motion include the findings that the staff suggested, which is appendix?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the report is part of the public record. No?
Yeah.
You have to adjust the chair.
Okay, go ahead.
936 and it's 939. When the gentleman was reading the,
Oh, okay. Oh, you have to move.
Wrong page?
You have to move. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Seeing no discussion, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair List,
Aye.
Chair Wolf,
Aye.
Member Roby,
Aye.
Member Lowry,
Aye.
Member Friend.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing part of the agenda tonight and move on to matters from commissioners and staff. That means you guys can go celebrate. Well, you don't have to leave, but okay, moving on. Matters from commissioners for staff or your fellow commission. Any staff matters that need to be brought to our attention?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. If it's the pleasure of the commission, I'd like just to give a brief status report of the Main Street Rehabilitation Project. I'll start with a recap of where we've been and then move on to where we are currently. Basically, the project consists of 3 phases. We have a Phase 1A, which is the water line replacement. Then we have a Phase 1B, which is the sewer line replacement. And then Phase 2, which will be the resurfacing, which would include all the flat work, bulb outs, and the like. Going back to the water line replacement component, which is completed, that project went out to bid in January 27th of this year. Bids were received in February 10th. And then construction began on March 3rd, and construction was completed on April the 29th. On Phase B, which is where we are now, the sewer line replacement, And actually, it's not so much a replacement as it's a rehab of the lines. This particular contractor will actually blow a type of material in the inside of the pipe and create a new lining. And in essence, it'll create then a pipe within the old sewer line. It went out to bid on May 29th of this year. Bids were received on June 12th. And construction is slated to begin on the 22nd of this month, actually tomorrow. They will clean and TV the sewer lines, and that'll be done at night, one night. And then on the 29th through the 30th, they will do the actual sewer lining, and they're estimated that'll take just 2 nights. So it's actually a 3-night project. And in the resurfacing component, we're looking at 2 options. So option A is the one that's currently the path that we're following. That's the resurfacing. That'll be the bulb outs. That'll be the curb cuts, some of the sidewalk repairs, and the like, and the crosswalks. That project will go out, or it did go out to bid on June 11th. The bid opening is scheduled for July the 23rd, so that's this Thursday. We hope to go to the City Council to award the contract on August the 11th. We're estimating about 45 working days. This project will also be done at night. We're estimating construction will start then on August the 24th with an estimated completion on October the 30th. And the option B is what we call the delayed project bidding. And so depending upon if we get reasonable bids and we don't reject all bids, if we end up rejecting all bids, then we move to option B, which will delay the project. And then we'll look at going out to bid on January the 15th of 2016 with bid opening scheduled for February the 12th of next year. And then we would estimate that construction would begin on March 14th and construction completing on May the 23rd. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this Thursday we get some competitive bids, and bids that are meet all the specifications, and we can do the option A and complete the project. But if not, we will move to option B. I think one of the issues for that is basically we're in the construction season right now. People are very, very busy, and this is a relatively small project. So we'll wait and see what happens. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have on the project.
Yeah, I wondered if any of the rumored obstacles present an issue to the completion of this project.
Any obstacles?
Yeah, I understand that someone hired a law firm in Southern California to write a letter to the City Council threatening legal action if we proceeded with the project.
Yes, a citizen did retain some legal counsel, and the city did receive a letter basically stating that the city was destroying important artifacts, some leather boots, actually just pieces of leather boots, some other items, some pieces of wood that allegedly belong to the original bell tower and those kinds of things. But this sewer component of the project will have very little, if any, excavation, and so there's no concern with the Phase 1B of this project. Phase 2 may have some excavation, and so we're reviewing what options the city may have in order to ensure that the project isn't going to affect any important artifacts.
And there is federal guidance on the importance of an artifact, quite apart from any nostalgic or emotional attachment we might find to a boot. So I'm hoping that that federal guidance will, as they say, I don't know what the merits of the other argument are, but Clearly, if you have Native American burial grounds or archaeological artifacts, that's completely understandable. But
Yes, that would be a very, very different situation.
all right.
I think most of the work from this point on will be conducted within the street profile that wouldn't go below the depth of the repaving work that was done on Main Street back in, I think, 1971.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last chance. Anything else from staff? Okay. I think by consensus, we can consider our meeting adjourned. Thank you.
To August 18. No meeting on August 4,
Right.
or whatever that date is.
No meeting on the 4th.